On the surface, The Long Game is a clever and daring piece of science fiction television, a piece of social commentary hidden behind funny-looking aliens and scenery-chewing villains. However, it's also something else entirely. It's a conscious embrace of the new realities of television back in 2005, an acknowledgement that these trappings have been blended with character-based storytelling and more modern tea-time teleconventions. Basically, it's a fun little romp that more give it credit for. Written by showrunner Russ T. Davis and directed by Brian Grant, this episode is certainly ambitious in the amount of content it promises to deliver in a strict 45-minute constraint, and arguably this is its greatest downfall. It's the epitome of filler, which is a great shame to have to say, but it cannot be defined otherwise. However, great many of the concepts put forward are. Nevertheless, I would argue there are many positives that can be derived from this episode, which I will explore. One tiny aspect I must point out initially, however, is the weird zoom-out effect that occurs just before the opening credits begin to roll. Although it gives off strange sci-fi vibes, it is a very strange shot, but it kind of works. It's not something I've ever noticed before, but on a rewatch it's quite striking. In terms of positive aspects of the episode for me, one would be the Doctor, who continues to shine in an episode that is certainly bogged down with its flaws. One example of this is with the Doctor's comment on travelling abroad, which is a surprisingly good joke and further highlights how RTD is excellent at the witty and rather jokey dialogue.
There you go, pocket money. Don't spend it all on sweets.
Well, how does it work?
Go and find out. Stop nagging me. The thing is, Adam, time travel's like visiting Paris. You can't just read the guidebook. You've got to throw yourself in, eat the food, use the wrong verbs, get charged double and end up kissing complete strangers. Or is that just me? Stop asking questions. Go and do it. Off you go, then. Your first date.
You're going to get a smack, you are.
I also really enjoy the interaction between the Doctor and Rose when they converse over the mystery of Satellite 5. It really highlights the Doctor's intrigue and his nature to investigate, and Rose's desire to have a bit more fun in the process.
Do you want to get out?
No, but this technology, it's amazing.
This technology's wrong.
Trouble?
Oh, yeah.
However, this episode is very clever indeed, and being a student journalist myself, I can't not take interest in this episode. The Doctor scolds Kafka for being a journalist of never asking anything or questioning motives. This isn't that old sci-fi fear that technology will make people stop thinking for themselves. If anything, the Doctor is upset that technology hasn't progressed enough. People, and indeed the Jagrafess, set this system in place, and people are complicit in keeping it going, which also means people can break the cycle. RTD, you are a clever chap indeed. One of the greatest positives this episode heralds for me is in the inclusion of Simon Pegg as the villain of the episode, the editor, and how he is certainly the perfect actor for this type of villain. He is quirky, slightly camp, but is perfectly portrayed by Pegg, who would go on to become a staple of the Cornetto trilogy. One scene with the editor I particularly enjoy is the liar segment, where we as the audience get a sense of his smugness, and what this implies about the artificial society and structure of the fourth great and bountiful human empire created here.
Who are you?
I'm the editor.
What's happening? There are bodies out there. What's going on?
While we're asking questions, would you please confirm your name?
My name is Suki McRae Cantrell. I was born 199'89 in the Independent Republic of Morocco.
Liar!
Hobbies include reading and archaeology. I'm not an expert or anything, I just like digging.
Liar!
I want to work for Satellite 5 because my sister can't afford university. And the pay scheme is really good.
Liar! Let's look at the facts, shall we? Hidden behind a genetic graft, but that's still you. Eva San Julien, last surviving member of the Freedom 15. Self-declared anarchist, is that right?
Who controls Satellite 5?
There's the truth!
I'm really happy for Simon Pegg to have graced his presence in the world of Who, and his character is certainly one that is more significant and memorable of the first series in terms of interactions with the Doctor, and how cleverly the character is written by RTD. I also really like the scene with a clear tie into philosophy, i.e. when the editor ponders how, is a slave really a slave if he doesn't know he's being enslaved, with the Doctor's satirical response of yes to this, really personifying the Ninth Doctor's no-nonsense attitude perfectly.
Create a climate of fear, and it's easy to keep the borders closed. It's just a matter of emphasis. The right word in the right broadcast repeated often enough can destabilize an economy, invent an enemy, change a vote.
So all the people on Earth are like slaves?
Well, now, there's an interesting point. Is a slave a slave? If he doesn't know, he's enslaved.
Yes.
Oh, I was hoping for a philosophical debate. Is that all I'm gonna get?
Yes. Yes.
You're no fun.
Let me out of these manacles. You'll find out how much fun I am.
Oh, he's tough, isn't he? But come on. Isn't it a great system? You've got to admire it just a little bit.
You can't hide something on this scale. Somebody must have noticed.
From time to time, someone, yes. But the computer chip system allows me to see inside their brains. I can see the smallest doubt and crush it.
A mention must again go to composer Murray Gold, who produces quite a surprisingly subtle score here. Although his usual bombastic self is evident in sections, it is subtle in other areas. For example, with scenes involving the editor, an underplaying high-pitched noise is present and perfectly represents the on-screen action and really helps to exemplify the excellence of Simon Pegg's performance. Another great and unfortunately unreleased track that I must commend Gold on in the episode is a track that plays in the establishing sequence of the episode. One final element I must commend in this episode is the fabulous direction from Brian Grant. For example, the tracking shot following the Doctor at the end of the episode is magnificent and really exemplifies the on-screen action yet again, namely the Doctor's anger at Adam. It is also a weird yet strangely effective choice not to show the actual journey between Satellite 5 and Adam's abode, and we get this unique scene where we follow the TARDIS exterior through said journey. Also, following on from this, I really enjoy the line where the Doctor is saying goodbye to Adam. I think we're all in harmony with the Doctor in this sequence.
That's it then. See ya.
How do you mean, see ya?
As in goodbye.
However, the first negative of the episode for me is how poorly they execute and underutilise the concepts portrayed in this episode. The concepts of truthfulness and truth value, supposed objectivity, all provide a wide scope of opportunity for satire and an in-depth probing of news consumption and distribution. However, they are all extremely underutilised and unexplored. Really rich concepts are put to the forefront here, but they are not explored as well as they could be. Instead, other more mediocre subplots are more explored. More on that later. Another nitpicky thing I have with this episode is the clicking of the fingers when opening the forehead, which gets very repetitive after seeing it a few times, and there is way too much emphasis placed upon it, especially at the end of the episode, and indeed as the final element right at the end of the episode with Adam and his mum. Also, the Jagrafess is a very weak villain, who has a very weak motive, and all of his actions are totally predictable. On top of that, it is defeated way too easy, and is just a forgettable monster of the week type of opponent. It certainly detracts from the editor too, who, if by himself, would have been more of a threat. One of the biggest negatives I hold against this episode is the character of Adam Mitchell. I mean, it's clear why the character is here, and I suppose why he gets the second adventure, but his purpose isn't exactly fulfilled here, as he ends up just wandering off by himself and not sticking with Rose like he's designed to be there for. His character simply being there takes away too much from the central plot, full of interesting concepts, but instead we focus on a very, very weak character whose subplot drags the entire episode down an entire notch. The filler aspect of this episode is exemplified even more, with the same set being reused many times, clearly just redressed, and this just really cheapens the episode, and it's particularly clear that this is one of the low budget episodes for the series. Also, the reuse of the same CGI shot of Satellite 5 is so obvious, it becomes painful after a while. However much they add different effects, it is still very obvious. Overall, this episode can be summed up in how it is really just a setup for things to come later, and whilst a few good moments occur, it is still a very frustrating watch. That is why I give this episode a 6.5 out of 10, which is a great shame, because if executed a little bit better, and given that a little bit more polish, then I don't have any regrets in saying this could have been one of the more better episodes of Series 1, but it is instead one of the more